Welcome back to Business AM. This is Metropole Television. This is the time we're going to tell you exactly what the biggest headlines that you're waking up to this morning and exactly how they are going to affect the way in which you operate yourself and also go about your business. This morning, we are privileged to be joined by CPA. Enoch Monari is in the studio this morning. Enoch, good morning.
Good morning.
Sun is shining outside.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a beautiful morning.
It's a beautiful morning.
Considering the kind of rains that we've had for the past week or so. Mm-hmm. It's good that we are seeing the sun again. Probably it will chase COVID away.
Oof, that's what everybody's praying for.
Yeah.
But with a warning that we do expect 70 to 100 millimeters, especially in Kisii-Nyamira areas, especially Western Kenya.
Yeah, it is raining heavily.
Yes.
And it's a blessing to the farmers. Mm-hmm. But of course, there are people who are suffering and we keep praying for them.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
All right, let's therefore get back into business. Now, we start with news that restaurants are set to be partially reopened, but under a new set of rules. Now, under the new guidelines issued by the National Emergency Response on Coronavirus, Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe has said restaurants must enforce social distancing measures that will see tables being spaced out within a distance of 1.5 meters. Let's see what Mutahi Kagwe tends to think about that before we talk about it.
Restaurants will operate between 5 and 4 p.m., not later than that, because after that, then it becomes difficult for the people to get home, just for curfew. But at least within that period, a lot of people were not able to go for lunch. Places near them can be able to do so. There are people who work in those restaurants. They can be able to do so. But of course, for them to do that, we also have asked that those restaurants that are going to open for this purpose must limit the number of persons who are going to be in the restaurant so that they can be able to keep the social distances that we have recommended. They can be able to keep at least 4 people for 10 square meters. The tables within the dining areas must be spaced at least 1.5 meters apart from each other, and customer sitting must also maintain the social distancing that is required. We must maintain the social distances not just along, but also behind each other. We have also said that this is not a license to start opening pubs. It is not a license to start opening alcohol sale across the country. Alcohol shall only be sold with those having meals in the normal manner in a restaurant. We have not opened bars. Then we have said that when we are in those restaurants, we will not be serving buffet lunches or self-service lunches for obvious reasons. I think anybody will understand that if you are going to go to those restaurants, then there will be no buffet as we understand it, or self-serving food and people walking around and in the food areas. That cannot happen. Then in terms of the safety within the restaurants, what we expect to see is that, number one, that anybody walking into a restaurant must wash their hands first. They must sanitize themselves. They must have a mask. And more seriously, is that restaurants that are going to open with people who have been tested, who are going to be COVID-free. So if your persons have not been tested, you cannot open a restaurant, because it is very possible then for a person serving there to spread the disease amongst all customers who walk in.
All right, now those are the new measures. Question being therefore, good, not good for any restaurant operator looking at it this morning, Enoch. Are they rejoicing, or they're saying, not yet?
I think from an economic point of view,
yes,
we've been crying for the government to slowly starting opening up the economy. And this is the first measure, which is a good thing, and it's positive to the Kenyans that the government has seen it fit to at least start opening up the economy. But there are so many challenges and worries that we currently have. One is that the small restaurants definitely gets kicked out because currently testing costs around 8 to 10,000 shillings. So if you have 10 staff, you need 100,000 shillings. And not so many restaurants can be able to afford that kind of money, especially if you're told that the testing has to be regular. And another thing is that we don't have so much traffic in town because I think the CS is worried about people who are going to work and don't have places to eat. And we don't have the kind of traffic in town that may excite most of the restaurants to open. I mean, I've shared with some of my clients and they feel they don't even need to sell the takeaways because it's not making sense. So that is another big worry. But my biggest worry is, and the reason why I may not visit the restaurants too soon, is that as much as you're keeping the social distancing, you must remove your mask to eat, right? We'll be sharing toilets. We'll be sharing sinks where we wash our hands. And the next question comes is, what kind of exposure will you get when you visit these restaurants? I mean, why should we have this paradox of telling people to stay at home, then we are encouraging them again to visit the restaurants and eat there? So it's a really big challenge, and I know the kind of fear that Kenyans currently have. Most people may not end up in restaurants, and most restaurants may not end up opening. And we also have to look at the big hotels that have closed. I mean, Intercon and all the other hotels, they are closed because there's no activity. I don't think they're going to open soon because they don't have clients who can be able to, and who cannot be able to patronage the place.
Do you feel that the government is sort of recognized that they can't go on this way? At least they gotta do something in light of the prevailing situation in the economy.
Yeah, they do. They feel they have to do something. But they don't know exactly what should come first. That is the challenge. I mean, I think we are in a situation whereby we can only monitor and see what other countries are doing, and we try and make similar moves. So if we don't care, the next phase of infections may actually come from the restaurants. And that is the biggest fear.
And that is where the fear is, isn't it? All right, let's therefore cross over therefore to the next issue this morning. We are talking about global remittances. That's for remittances in that sense. Now, despite the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the global economy, which has cut such inflows from other countries such as South Africa, United Arab Emirates, Mauritius and Oman, Kenya has continued to record more remittances from its citizens working or living in the United States of America, United Kingdom and the rest of Europe. Now, according to weekly data from the Central Bank of Kenya, remittance inflows increased to 228.9 million in March 2020 compared to 218.8 million in February. Now, the cumulative inflows in the 12 months to March 2020 totaled just around 2.83 billion compared to 2.72 billion in the 12 months to March 2019, reflecting a growth of 4.3%. Now, available figures puts total diaspora remittances to Kenya in 2019 at around 254.6 billion compared with the 245 billion in the previous year. That's where we stand. Good. It's interesting that we should be talking about this, but when you go back comparatively, last year, they're going to talk about around 280 billion in terms of diaspora remittances into the country. How do we digest this? Because the World Bank was telling us, look, you are going to get a heavy hit to the region of 20%. Is it too early for us to celebrate, or will we start to say, well, as from next month, that's when we start to see the effect?
No, statistically, it is too early because we are comparing figures that have an additional 12 months, 9 months from the previous year. When there was a lot of activity in the economy, and we are actually including probably a month or two which have been greatly affected by COVID. So statistically, it is too early. But what excites me about the figures is that Kenyans outside the countries who've gone to work outside continue investing back at home, and they have big infrastructure projects. They're investing in companies and in the stock exchange, which is a good thing. But I can tell you that the kind of suffering that we have here currently for the past 1 month or two our brothers and sisters out there are suffering more.
Yes.
I mean, when you look at what is happening in the US, France, Germany, UK, and other countries, the Kenyans are really suffering. So we may see a drop. When we finally get to combine our figures for 2020, we will see a big drop. Just like we expect our economy not to perform well during this period, we may see a big drop during this period, considering that people are hoarding money right now to use it for basic stuff like paying your rent and getting food. But it's a good thing that we continue receiving money from our brothers out there, and the trust that they have for our economy and our country, and the fact that they are investing here, and they eventually plan to come back.
Pretty much, isn't it? But now, you know, for somebody listening to you this morning and then really looking at the stats that we have with diaspora remittances now being the top foreign exchange earners to the country, and also tourism also being in the top 5 as well, let me say top 3 as well. When you say, look, diaspora remittances are going to be hit by 20%, and then you also come over the other side and tell us, well, another way, tourism is also going to be hit heavily. And we have now fears that it's going to take almost 6 months for us to recover when it comes to tourism. What position does that leave the economy and the government as well in terms of understanding how to support whatever it is that they're doing locally?
I think the first thing is that diaspora remittance is not a source of income for this country.
Yes.
It is just people sending money here to invest here, and probably it helps in job creation. But we have to look at the sources of income for this country, and those are the exports.
Yes.
And one of them, of course, is the flower industry and tourism and all those things.
Yes.
Those are the ones that have been hit heavily, and we don't expect them to recover soon. Because, I mean, the challenges we have currently, 3 or 4 months from today, people may still not freely travel.
Yes.
In this country, because we'll not have fully dealt with the pandemic that we currently have. So we expect a long period where we'll be greatly affected. And if you saw the figures from KRA is actually expecting a drop of their revenue by almost 270 billion.
Yes.
Which for me, I put at 300 to 500 billion for the year ending 30th June. So it's a big worry. And I expect the persons involved in the various ministries are working on strategies to ensure that also picks up quickly once the economy opens up.
Yes. Yeah. And I gotta tell you this, therefore, we do know that MPC is supposed to meet tomorrow, that is April 29th. Now, when we have these figures, therefore, we have a lot of warnings in exactly how the liquidity in the market is going to get affected, because therefore you're talking about a drop of around 20% in diaspora remittances into the country. Do you think they're going to look at all these issues and say, well, we got to do something around it? And what do you expect from MPC tomorrow? Are they going to say, well, since we're getting in the recovery period and since we do not expect so much from outside, interest rates have to go a bit high just to get into that recorrection period? Or are they going to say, got to retain them for the prevailing period?
No, I think considering what has happened from central bank for the past 1 month or so, we've blamed them for so many things, and I mean, we've questioned the moves that they have made. And I don't expect they are going to change anything at this period of time, considering that the president pushed them to put in place measures so that they can be able to cushion the economy and see how we can be able to revive the economy quickly. And they have put those measures, some of those that we've questioned here, and we are still not yet to see the fruits. So we don't expect them to go harder or to increase the interest or whatever they can be able to do, but to try and maintain everything the way it is, with hope that now that we have the tax amendments, the law that has been passed bill that has been passed into law, we can have another month of assessing the situation as it is. Then we can be able to see what next after that.
Do you think they're going to make in light of the just approved tax amendments bill 2020? Is that the reason as to why they want to meet? Because now everybody is looking at it, well, they gotta meet on April 29th. What do you think is behind this meeting? Because every time they meet, we do expect now the announcement they're going to make are just in light of the prevailing economic conditions because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
It's important that they meet because the measures that central bank has put in place, especially on how banks operate and how banks are interacting with their customers, they need to review that and see whether it is actually working. Because again, the biggest challenge we have is that some of the directives that the central bank governor issued, we still haven't seen them being actualized. I mean, the only bank that I can say has gone full throttle on them is ABSA.
Yes.
Which, I mean, clearly has said we want to implement this. And considering that now we have the changes in law on how tax will be collected and the measures that the government is putting in place, it is good for them to be able to meet so that they can be able to assess the situation as it is now.
Yes.
And see whether we are doing badly or we are improving as an economy. Then from there, then they can be able to plan for the next 30 days and see what kind of extra or additional measures they can be able to put in place to continue, of course, ensuring that the economy does not fall further from where it is.
Pretty much, isn't it? We're talking about a forecast reduction in diaspora remittances. And CBK is pretty much aware of that. We're talking about sectors like tourism that we have to wait for longer, therefore, for us to start seeing turnarounds now, in light of also the conditions around KQ and all that. When you look at that now, I mean, they're quite aware that this is the condition that we are. But everything they've done, Enoch, they've as if done it through the banks. And that was the blame that the CBK Governor, Dr. Patrick Njoroge, was actually passed to. Like, even when you have an emergency fund, you're pretty much taking this money to the banks and saying, well, the banks are going to give you this money on cheap interest rates because your CBR is 7.25%. Do you think now, because the banks also look at it and say, wow, because of the way in which the economy, therefore, activity is reduced, you got to give us a leeway for us to also recover? Or is it pretty much going to be status quo remains despite? Which therefore begs the question, do you think it's going to be on the spotlight this time round for heavily regulating the banks in the country?
I think we've complained enough. We've complained enough about central bank, and however kind of assurances that have come out of the CBK governor, we still feel that they have not done enough. Remember, he has been on record telling us that we have enough cushion when it comes to forex cover. So the reduction in the diaspora remittances and the fact that our foreign earning activities are very low, we have that assurance that at least we have 5 months of forex cover to, of course, help the country as we continue importing. So the biggest challenge will be how effective have their measures been, especially what they have been doing through the banks. I mean, they talked about SMEs getting moratoriums on loans, and they pushed that to the banks. They set up an emergency fund, and it's being pushed to the funds. Now that through the amendments that were done in Parliament, we even have an SME fund that was to be created, and 13 billion, I think, was allocated to that, together with the Inua Jamii. They have to look at how they can be able to actualize that. And that will also be done through the banks. So the banks, again, will be on the spotlight. That as much as central bank has put in place such measures, have the banks been active enough? Have they been proactive enough to a level that they're receiving these monies and they're passing those benefits to the Kenyans? Because we don't want a situation whereby we keep on talking about things, but we don't know of a person out here who has benefited from these funds or the moratorium and such things. So we want the banks to be active too, so that they can also help the central bank achieve what they intend to achieve with the kind of measures they are putting in place.
Pretty much, isn't it? Guess what, Enoch? I'll be calling you back so we can talk about exactly what it is that they say tomorrow. Now, moving on to tea sector, which is also among the leading as foreign exchange earners. Now, the weekly Mombasa tea auction held on the 21st and 22nd April 2020 recorded a 12.1 million kilograms of tea offered for sale compared to 10.4 million kilograms for the same period last year. Out of all the tea offered for the sale, 11.6 million kilograms was sold compared to 9.7 million kilograms for the same period last year. The auction recorded an increase in prices, with a kilogram selling for an average of $2.12 compared to $2.02 in the previous sale. Okay, I just want us to talk about that now, so that we can know exactly where it is that we're coming from. Now remember, as expected, yes, because the president's directive said that all the tea that was supposed to be exported was supposed to be turned locally into the tea auctions. No wonder the price, no wonder the volume increase. And now the only good thing is that the price is jumped up. But I want to ask you this. We're going to talk about also KTDA in terms of response to this new directive as well. The 14% charged on all the tea auctions, that despite the price increase, Enoch, under the Tax Amendment Bill 2020, which is just in the light of the day, you're supposed to get charged 14% for all the local tea auctions that you're carrying in the country. And it's what I kept on asking you, Enoch. Is it we are doing something, but then at the background, we are finding a way as the government, in light of the prevailing economic conditions, to have a way to bite it back from you?
I'll speak as a son of a farmer,
Yes.
and someone who grew up and benefited heavily from tea and the bonuses that were received. That's how our school fees was being paid.
Yes.
I can tell you the farmers suffer. And as much as we have rosy figures coming from the tea auctions, the farmers never feel that change.
Yes.
Because me and you know the figures, but whatever amounts that will reach the farmers at the end of the day
Yes.
will still not be making sense, considering the kind of inputs that
Yes.
they are putting and the hard work that the farmers put in ensuring that the tea is plucked and it gets to the tea buying centers and the factories process it
Yes.
for auction. So that is what the government wants. And I think the CS, Peter Munya, has tried to address that through the changes that he wanted to make. And we are yet to see, because I know KTDA personally has rejected the amendments.
Yes.
Because they still want to have a stronghold on how this is done.
Yes.
Because why should you sell commodities belonging to the farmers and you end consuming 60% of the amount in form of commissions and fees here? It does not make sense, because the person who should benefit most from those tea auctions is the farmer.
Yes.
Because he's the one who is handling the raw product. So those are the kind of changes that we still expect in that industry. Otherwise, people will continue uprooting tea. Like we've seen cases in Kericho and other areas, and even Kisii, where we come from. And as long as the farmer feels like they're not getting the kind of benefit they expect, and considering that our land is becoming smaller and smaller,
Yes.
with the increase in population, people look for alternative farming.
Yes, I want us to go through some of the raft of those measures that the president actually oversaw.
Yes.
In there's also, we do know, there's also the tea bill, which is in the House right now, just to see some of these proposals under this coronavirus times will be effected into law. Now, number one, they're saying that under the half-pay directive is that all the amounts that accrue from the sale of tea from the farmers, they have to get, number one, half pay immediately.
Yes.
That is taken directly to the factory accounts.
Yes.
And the farmers have to agree how the rest of the money has to be paid, not more than 3 months after that agreement. Do you think that this is exactly what we need?
It is, because the farmers are actually actively involved in electing directors.
Yes.
To the KTTA, to the factories.
Yes.
And that is the kind of control that the farmer will want. That at the end of the day, the money is channeled to where the farmers have control. And that should be the factory where their tea is processed.
Yes.
And of course packaged for auction. So once that happens, we'll be able to see more benefits to the farmer, and people will become more excited about tea farming.
Yes.
If you're able to get 50% upfront, that is so beautiful.
Yes.
Then you are assured again that within a given period, you will still receive your 50%. We have a system currently where a farmer is given 1,000 shillings, then you only leave and wait for the bonus, which is heavily again taxed, considering that you receive fertilizer and so many other small things here. You don't get the kind of benefit that you want. So the farmers will be happy to receive their money quite in time.
Yes.
And to have control on how they receive the balance of the monies.
Yes.
And I think that will also give the farmers the confidence that they require to continue investing in tea farming.
Pretty much, isn't it? I want to take you to another one this morning, and I think that's where KTDA comes in and say, well, we don't actually think that this is good for the farmers and for the sector as well. Now, they're talking about brokerage services, where they're saying that a broker is only allowed a maximum of 15 factories, that you can't take hold of more than 15 factories. And number two, I want us to talk about that as well, the company secretary. They're saying company secretaries shall be excluded from services offered by management service providers, in the sense that if you decide to employ any company secretary, that money shall not be withdrawn from the process that's go to the farmers. It's up to you to look for that money and pay that secretary. Do you think that limiting the number of brokers that are assigned to a specific factory is just 15? What is this supposed to help, Enoch?
It's basically supposed to help the farmers to get attention
Yes.
from these brokers.
Yes.
Because if you have a broker who is serving 30 or 40 factories, he can be able to be involved in shady business,
Yes.
especially when we consider that it's actually an auction.
Yes.
Someone can be involved in shady business, and
Yes.
and you end up in a situation whereby some factories from some regions get lower revenue from the auction
I see.
than the others. So because it's a huge industry,
Yes.
we want more brokers so that the farmers can be able to get value for money, because there is competition in the brokerage business. And once we limit the brokers to a given number of factories,
Yes.
we'll have more brokers coming up and attention being given to the farmer. On the issue of the company secretary, KTDA takes a commission of the sales. That commission is the one that is supposed to meet all the expenses. So you cannot take a commission and still pay some of the expenses directly from the farmer's revenue or cut.
Yes.
It is unfair.
Yes.
If you are taking a commission, which is I think 2.5%, pay all your expenses from that.
Yes.
Then leave the rest of the money to reach the farmer.
Yes.
Yes.
KTDA feel that this correction finally, therefore, as we come to the end of this conversation, that it should have been done within KTDA. Sort of find working ways to empower KTDA further, that make these proposals in line with, they feel like they've been excluded from the tea business in the country. Do you also foresee this?
No, sometimes when you're making changes,
Yes.
and you know that the thief will be affected,
Yes.
you may not want to have the thief on the table so that he can also give you proposals. He might be an expert in it,
Yes.
but you look at the situation and realize that much of the problems have been caused by the same people. So you want to look for people who can be able to help you come up with regulations that will help you regulate that person. So as much as we push for public participation, KTDA should be given an opportunity to be heard on the challenges, of course, that they have been facing before. But the measures that are being implemented should be in a way that we have a revolutionized kind of operations in KTDA. I mean, it's at this point that we should even be able to do away with the board, the KTDA board, dissolve it, form a new board, and have new regulations on board, so that we can be able, it's more of like you're starting afresh again. That is the kind of arrangement that we should be having, because at the moment, as long as you leave the same people at the helm, whatever measures that we come up with, they'll still find a way around them.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
All right. And thank you very much for joining us this morning. I like the way you started it, that you have grown with tea as the support system for your life. So he pretty much knows what he's talking. He pretty much knows what he's talking about now. Good thing is, you can actually take him back to the studio this morning when he walked in. That is at Metropole TVKE on YouTube. Once you're there, subscribe. Also, leave that comment for him. And also, if you want to send him questions in on exactly what he was talking about, 20146. That is your SMS line. We take a short break. Once we come back, Sector Trends this morning.